All right. Well, good morning. Today we are doing notes, obviously you can tell, on vertex form and transformations of quadratics. Okay. Now we've been doing transformations for almost 2.5 weeks now. Okay, so hopefully y'all are okay with that. And we have been dealing with vertex form, but we just haven't put a name on it. So today we're gonna kind of talk about what that is. So what vertex form is, it's just another way that we write equations, okay? Like we've talked about slope-intercept form, we've talked about standard form, we've talked about point-slope form. So all this is just another form. So what vertex form is it's y equals a parentheses x minus h parentheses squared plus k. Okay, that's vertex form. And if you can tell, it's right over here too, if you don't like how I wrote it. But it's y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so we're going to talk about what each of those letters, what it represents, what they can do. So the a, if you remember from the transformations, the a can tell us whether we're having a vertical compression or a stretch, okay? A vertical compression or a vertical stretch, okay? Remember, if this number a is greater than 1, it's a stretch. If it's between 0 and 1, it's a compression, okay? That's what the a can tell us. Moving on to the next one, h. So h is inside the parentheses, okay? If you remember from last week, the h, the letter or the number inside the parentheses tells me what the horizontal translation is. Remember, if it's moving to the left or to the right, that's what the h tells me. The k at the very end, hopefully you can kind of guess, that tells me the vertical translation. All this stuff we've already been talking about. So remember, vertical translation means up or down. So if like in the picture, right, this one's moving up from here to here, it moves up, okay? So a tells me vertical compression, vertical stretch. H tells me horizontal translation. K tells me if there's a vertical translation, okay? So let's move down, okay? So we're gonna identify all of these parts of these different quadratic equations. Now, if you look at these are what we've been looking at, right? We've been looking at equations that look just like this, okay? We just assign them letters, so it's not super freaky, okay? So in this first one, I have y equals 2 parentheses x plus 1 squared minus 4, okay? So I'm going to label all my parts first. So I have an a, h, and k, right? A, h, and k, okay? So with my a, remember that's the number in front. So my a for this equation is going to be 2, right? Easy. Now, my h, this one's a little tricky. If you look inside the parentheses, it's a plus 1, right? But if we look up here in the equation, it's minus h, okay? So what you need to do to find out what your h is you take the opposite sign of whatever's in the parentheses, okay? So if I have a plus 1, that means my h is negative 1. It's the opposite, okay? The opposite sign. And then my k, there's no tricks about that one. My k is just whatever's at the end. So my k is negative 4, okay? Hopefully y'all are okay with that. So moving on. So we're answering this first kind of questions, and it has opens and a question mark, okay? All that's asking is, does this equation open up or does it open down, okay? Now there's 2 ways you could do this, okay? One way is you put it in Desmos, right? You type all this into Desmos in the calculator and you just look at it, okay? But what I'm going to show you now is how you can tell which way it opens just by looking at the equation, okay? So the way you can tell is if this number in front, right? if there's not a negative sign, right? If it's just a positive number in front, it opens up. So because A is positive, it opens up. Okay, so it's just a regular U shape. It'll look something like this. So it's going to be a U. And you can double check in Desmos, but it's right, okay? If this number in front is positive, it opens up, okay? Hopefully we're good with that. The next thing we're talking about is the vertex. And again, normally we would use the graph, right? Or we'd graph it in Desmos and we'd find the vertex. But what I want to show you is how we can find it just using the equation, okay? So, to find the vertex, okay? We're going to write this right here. To find the vertex, it's going to be parentheses H, comma, K, okay? So it's H, comma, K. That's the vertex. Now what that means is we plug in the H and K from the equation into an ordered pair, okay? So if I look up here, right, my H is -1. So instead of H, I'm going to put -1 here, okay? My K is -4. So I'm going to, instead of K, I'm going to put -4 here, okay? And that's my vertex. That's it. I'm done with the vertex, okay? That's all you have to do. Now again, you can use the Desmos calculator and it'll tell you the same thing. This is the vertex. It's H, comma, K, okay? And that's it. Vertex is done. Now AOS, if you remember what that stands for axis of symmetry, okay? So the axis of symmetry, again, normally we use the graph, but we don't need it anymore. Now we can use this equation. So using the equation, the axis of symmetry is, the equation is x equals h, okay? So start with my axis of symmetry. If you remember, we always start with x equals. Every single time, it's x equals, okay? So what we're going to do here is instead of putting h, I'm going to put my h, which is -1. So x equals -1. Done. That's all you have to do. And remember, like if you remember like how I said when we're doing the attributes, the number in the front, remember the x value of the vertex is the same number that goes here. And see, they're both h's. So that's why they're the same. Okay? And we're going to practice more if you don't get it so far, so just kind of stay with me. And now the transformations, all it's asking is just list all the things that are happening, okay? So this should be kind of a review from last week. So the transformations that are happening is I have a vertical stretch, right? Because this number in front is greater than 1. So the 2 tells me I have a vertical stretch, okay? Because I have a +1 in here, that tells me I have a horizontal, so I'm just going to write horizontal translation. Now since it's +1, okay, it's kind of the opposite. So +1 means I'm going to the left 1 unit, okay? So it's a horizontal translation to the left 1 unit, okay? And then the last translation is the -4. That one's the easy one. That means I have a vertical translation down, since it's -4 units, okay? And that's it. We're done with that one, okay? So again, it opens up because A is positive. The vertex is H, comma, K. Boom, put it right there. The axis of symmetry is x equals H. Boom, put it right there. And transformations, we've been doing that, okay? Let's move on. Next one. I have y equals -3, parentheses x minus 2 squared plus 1, okay? So, same thing. I need an A, I need an H, and I need a K, okay? So, just looking at this, right? My A is everything that's in front. So now my A is -3, okay? My h, remember, it's not what's in the parentheses. It's the opposite sign of what's in the parentheses. So instead of -2, it's going to be +2. Okay? And then the k, that stays the same. K is still 1. Okay? So eventually we should get really fast at this. So since my a, remember, in this one my a was positive, right? So it opened up. This one, the a is negative. So you can kind of guess it's going to open down. So it's going to look kind of like an upside down U, like that. Okay? And that's it for that part. Now we're on to the vertex. Okay, so remember, the vertex is h, comma, k. Okay? So my h is going to be the x value, which is 2. So I'm just going to put that right there. My k is the y value. My k is 1. Vertex is done. We don't even have to graph it. We don't have to use Desmos. We don't have to use any calculator. We can tell just from the equation that my vertex is 2, comma, 1. Okay? Now, the axis of symmetry. So remember, that equation is x equals h. Okay? So, just like every axis of symmetry, we start with x. And I'm going to put my h right here. My h is 2. Boom. We put it right there. We're done. Okay? Hopefully you should be getting kind of the hang of this. We're going to do a few more. Okay? Now let's go to transformations, right? So transformations, remember, we look for the number in front. We don't look at the sign. Whoa, we'll look at the sign, actually. I forgot about that. My bad. Ooh. Okay. So the minus in front tells me it's reflected across the x-axis, right? The minus tells me it's reflected across the x-axis. That's what makes it open down, okay? Now the 3, since that is greater than 1, that tells me there is a vertical stretch, okay? It's a vertical stretch. Now we're on to the inside the parentheses. So since inside the parentheses, that tells me I have a horizontal translation. Okay, and now since it's minus, that means I'm going to the right 2 units. Okay, and then last, the easy one, +1. That means I have a vertical translation up 1 unit. Okay, that's number 2. Done. Let's go to our third example. So in our third example, I need an A, an H, and a K, okay? So again, starting with A. A is whatever's in front, okay? Now, if I look, there's nothing in front. But what have we learned this whole year? If there's nothing in front, we assume there's an imaginary 1, okay? Every time. So if there's nothing there in front, we assume there's a 1, okay? Now the H, remember, it's not what's inside the parentheses. It's not 2. It's the opposite sign of that. So it's a -2, okay? And then K, that's the easy one. It's just -3, okay? So, again, we look at the A to tell which way it opens. So since it's 1, and 1 is positive, we know that this one opens up, okay? Now, look at the vertex. So, parentheses, okay. So, vertex, H, comma, K. So, my H is -2. We got that from up here. My K is my Y value. My K is -3. It goes right there, okay? Now let's move on to the axis of symmetry. So, just like we've been doing, we start with x equals, and then it's x equals h. So my h for this one is -2. So we put a little -2, we're done with that, okay? Eventually you kind of get with the pattern and it goes by really fast, okay? So, the transformations that happened. So, if I look at this number, right, it's a 1. Is 1 greater than 1? You would say no, it is not, right? So it's not a vertical stretch. Now, is 1 in between 0 and 1? No, it's not. It's 1, right? It's 1 itself. So that means because it's 1, there's no vertical stretch, there's no vertical compression, okay? So there's none of that. But there is a number inside the parentheses. So that tells me there is a horizontal translation. Now it's a plus. So that means to the left 2 units. Okay? Now I'm on to the last part, which is the vertical. So I have a vertical translation. Minus 3, so down 3 units. Okay? Just like that. Okay? I hope this makes sense. Just like I always do, I post the blank notes so you can take notes at home if you want, if you can print them out, or you can print out my copies, whichever way works for you, okay? But you're not gonna have an assignment today, but you will have an assignment tomorrow, okay? So take these notes, look over the videos, make sure you've done all your assignments, because again, the 6 weeks is ending very soon. I know this is weird, but just try to keep up, okay? If you have any questions, just email me, or if you need to Zoom, I'm on every day at 11, so just let me know. Y'all have a good day.